So, hello everybody. Welcome to another interview of the Spirit Portal with myself, Samaya, and I would very much like to welcome this month's guest, which is the very, very lovely Chris Paradox. Chris, thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks for inviting me. Hi everyone. Thanks, Samaya.
It's really, really lovely to have Chris on board and really get to hear a little bit more of his story. I know that a lot of people who are going to be watching this interview, Chris, do know you quite well. They've met you through your work, through the workshops you do, through the festivals. And just to say before we start that the reason I wanted to have this interview and chat with you is because a couple of things. You're a man with a very clear and very strong voice, and it's a very strong voice that it's very much linked to a sense of purpose, your sense of purpose, and the thing that I really love about you and the journey and the work that you do is that it's very much you're not afraid to step into your human beingness, and the human beingness is the aspect that I feel often people can kind of leave behind when we embark on our life journey. However, some of the pitfalls of spirituality and transcendence and denial and blah, blah, blah. And you're talking quite a lot on your video that we posted under the little introduction I did in Facebook. And I'd love to hear more about that. But that was the reason I really wanted to, see you here today and have this chat with you. And you have a very powerful story that I would love you to share with the world. And I think at the very first time that we've met, and you probably won't remember that, was kind of not very long after your Battersea Park adventure. It was when you were doing your poetry in festivals. It was in Buddhafield, so I think it must have been just very few years. But you don't really probably remember that. It was we were both in a very much younger selves. But yeah, I would just love to hear. You've had quite a journey, haven't you? And you're still having quite a journey.
Yeah, that's right. Hopefully it's going to continue for a few more years, yeah.
and I would very much love to hear a little bit more about the time that kind of sparked you off in taking that adventure, in just really turning your life around, letting go of this, really powerful job you had in the city and leaving media behind, and you stepping into that real kind of difficult space of complete unknown, where you kind of just say, come on to the universe, bring it on. I just really, what happened? Do you remember, was it a particular day that you just woke up? Was it an accumulation of events in your life that kind of led you at some point to take the leap? What kind of what got into you at the time?
So yeah, there was one particular instance. So I was working I was running a media buying division of a recruitment advertising agency in London, and this is back in 2000, and my division of the company, we had like 40 staff and 3 offices, and it was billing 10 million billings and a million sales. It was a very successful division of a bigger company.
Yeah.
And basically I was making my board of directors a lot of money, and I was earning a good salary as well. I was on 70k, I had a company car, an expense account, all that. And at that time, I'd had spiritual experiences. In fact, I had a near-death experience, and I had some very profound spiritual experiences, but I didn't know how to integrate them into my life. So I was just focusing on my career, and actually, I was quite ambitious.
Yeah.
And my board of directors one day came to me and they said, look, you've done so well over the last 5-6 years. We're going to make you a director. We're going to make you a board director, and
wow.
one of the boys, as it were, because it was completely patriarchal. There was like 12 directors. They were all middle-aged, fat, balding, middle-aged white men living in Chiswick, going through midlife crisis, buying TVR bikes and stuff. So I was very pleased about that. They took me to a restaurant in Holland Park, and my idea was I'd read Viktor Frankl's book, Man's Search for Meaning, a few years before this, which profoundly affected me, and it has affected my whole life. And even then, I was very interested in purpose and why we're here and the human journey and experience. So I thought in my naive little mind, right, here are all my board directors. These are the guys that I've been looking up to all these years. I've been working really hard for them so that I could become like them. They are wise men. This is what I thought at the time. So I'm going to ask them the big question. I'm going to ask them, why are we here? What's it all about? And so we had the dinner and we had toasts, and I went around the table and I asked each one of them the question, why are we here? And every single answer was something like, it's dog eat dog, get what you can while you can, love is a romantic delusion, mankind is a virus. It was just the most nihilistic, selfish, self-centered, cynical answers you could possibly imagine. Every single one. So I had literally 12 answers like that. I went around the table. And by the end of it, have you seen the film Jerry Maguire?
Yeah.
Okay, I call it my Jerry Maguire moment. You know, when he tries to tell the kid of the dad has been injured.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, don't worry, your dad will take care. We want him making money, and the kid just gives him the finger.
Yeah.
And then he has that night where he completely has that. He writes his memo and everything. Mm-hmm. That was my version of
Right.
I literally completely disillusioned, and you know the word disillusioned is quite funny because usually when we say disillusion, we mean something bad. But actually, disillusioned means to have your illusions taken away. So it's actually something good.
Yeah.
So I had my illusions taken away about my whole career, what I've been doing. I basically felt, oh my God, I've been working really hard to be like you. And if that's what you believe, I don't want to be anything like you. And I can't do this job anymore. So that's really how that psychologically, that was the end of my time in media and advertising.
And how old were you at the time?
Say again?
How old were you at the time?
So I was, that was 2000, I was 33.
Okay. And you know, I'm just thinking in terms of what you were saying, you were looking up to them as the wise men, and here was a man looking for a mentor of some sort, and somebody to kind of look up to and get direction from. And then on the other hand, you had Franco, who sounded almost like a mentor figure really through his experience. But that's quite a thing, because it sounds almost like from what you're describing that it was pretty kind of pretty quick as a realization, right? That
very sudden. Most of my realizations back in that day anyway were very sudden and very peak, very intense. Yeah.
Wow.
Not so much before, but they were then. Yeah.
Yeah. Which and also with considering what you had built up there. I mean, did that realization, I mean, clearly you've made a big change in your life after that, but did it feel at the time like a devastating kind of event? Was it like a devastating event? Because you had also built up something quite a big career, right? That was getting a lot of recognition from the mainstream society, at least. So how devastating did that feel? And are you able to see that as a positive experience now looking back, or at the time did that instinct also kick in, and that awareness?
I didn't really see it as positive at the time. At the time, it was devastating because I had career ambitions. I've been working hard for many years, and basically in one moment, really. I suddenly saw that there's an expression, it's all very well climbing the ladder, but if you climb the ladder to find out it's up against the wrong wall, it's a terrible experience, and that's what it was. I've been climbing this ladder of career advancement only to discover I didn't want to climb that wall. I was against the wrong wall. So initially it was very disappointing and disillusioning, as I say. And it took a few months for me to actually extricate myself from the business. They actually got rid of me. But actually in those few months, what was good, what did come out of it, is that because I didn't care about basically serving them anymore, I started to serve myself at work. And one of the things I used to do was media research anyway. So in that 9 months between this happening and me leaving, I spent most of my time doing internet media research about things I was interested in. And actually that is where I discovered things like, I didn't discover this on the internet, but I discovered Conversations with God, The Way of the Peaceful Warrior, all of the great spiritual books. I read them during that 9 months. And I also discovered about the banking system and the elites and how the world works through internet media research. So actually I educated myself during that 9 months after this happening about the world outside my bubble of advertising and media. And ultimately that stood me in good stead in the years to come.
Yeah, especially because then that kind of really fueled the content for your work and your poetry and the sort of activism you got into through that. And so you said you've been dropped at work, right? So so you didn't actually leave the work. How did it work? Because it sounded from what you said they actually dropped you after a while.
I'm not very subtle, so I made it really obvious to people that I didn't respect them anymore, my directors. So now I'm a director as well. I'm an equal. And basically I just said to them, what I tried to do very naively was change the nature of recruitment media buying. I tried to make it, basically like Jerry Maguire, I tried to make it fairer for our clients. Instead of us taking a cut, I said we should charge our clients a flat fee and perform a service rather than skimming money from the media and from the client and all this. And they were like, what are you talking about? We'd lose money. Exactly like Jerry Maguire. So but I didn't care. I just did my own thing. And that really annoyed them. So they moved me in a sideways position into a new business, knowing that the business would fail. And then they could say, when the business failed, they could say, okay, sorry, we haven't got a job for you. You can sell us, we'll buy back your shares, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So this very clever. But actually, I wanted to leave anyway. So, it worked out well for both of us. And at the same time that year, my marriage was falling apart. That's kind of a long story. I mean, people will be interested, but I've got so many stories. It's going to take more than an hour if I tell them all.
And it's good to focus on the key stuff that you want to focus. So go for it. Yeah.
Yeah, but my marriage was falling apart. So it was I'm going to talk about a classic spiritual nervous breakdown.
Sure.
So they tend to be the same thing.
Yeah.
So the nervous breakdown part of it came because my work life that I'd been working hard towards fell apart, and my relationship life fell apart.
Yeah.
And what I will say is that a big part of it, and I must say this simply just out of respect and honour, that the book Conversations with God played a major, major part in me ultimately moving into the park, and also being able to holding it together. I feel during this period it was because of Conversations with God. So I'll tell you one story which I think is helpful. So my wife went on holiday and I was at home on my own in January of 2001 this was, and somebody had given her the first book of Conversation with God, and I just thought, oh, interesting title, and I started to read it, and I couldn't stop reading it, and then I read book 2 in the same day pretty much. I read both of them in 2 days. I just literally couldn't put it down. I'd never read a book before that sounded like the voice of my heart. It was like literally, this sounds like the voice of my heart. And there was one particular expression in the book where God, and it doesn't matter if you believe in the God of religion, just what we know as highest meaning, or all that is, God says, I have sent you nothing but angels. And the words nothing but angels were written in black in the middle of the page, just nothing but angels. And I basically, I don't know how I can describe it, had a fit, went into a trance, had a rapture. I fell off the bed, probably twitching and shaking. And what I remember, the first sort of thing I thought of, strangely, was my sister and how much I loved her. Then my mum, then my dad, then my sons, then all of my family, then all of my friends, and then everyone I knew, then the whole of England, then the whole of Europe, then the whole of the world, and the whole of nature, then my heart just expanded into love of the whole universe.
Wow.
And that probably happened in about a minute. And I remember I was on the ground in this state of complete rapture very quickly, just from reading those words. And then I had about an hour or so, when I looked at the clock afterwards, of this strange, whatever you want to call it, road to Damascus experience, where I saw the light. And then when I came out of it, I just had this faith. And I just was like, okay, nothing but angels. I wonder what that looks like. And I wanted to know what it looked like if everyone was an angel. And I went out of my house and I lived at the bottom of Blackheath Hill in Lewisham. And the first thing I saw was a group of about 10 young black youths, maybe in their mid-teens, chasing a older white guy down the hill, some of them holding bats and pipes and weapons, basically. This guy running for his life, and he ran into, not my next door neighbour, but the one after that, into this front garden. There was another guy there who kind of shielded him a little bit, and they kind of went to run in afterwards. And as I'm watching this, with no thought at all, my body walked into the front garden, through the gang of youths,
Whoa.
and stood in front of the guy that was being threatened, in between him and the group. And honestly, there was no thinking at all.
Wow.
Literally, my body just took me there. And the experience was, when I was looking at them, I could see that they were angry and shouting and threatening. But what I actually saw, like when you look at a baby, and as a new mother, you know this perfectly, when I say angel, I don't mean I saw them with wings.
Sure.
I saw them as you would see a baby, pure and innocent and beautiful. And I saw them all like that. I saw their purity, their innocence, and their beauty, even though they were standing in front of me holding pipes, shouting and screaming that they were going to kill this guy. And so I just, again, none of this, I never thought about any of this. I just started talking to particularly the main one at the front, who was the angriest. He was talking about something this guy had done to his sister or something. And I was just saying to him, you don't want to do this. This isn't you. This isn't you. This isn't you. I just kept saying, this isn't you, and you don't want to do this, because I kept seeing his purity and innocence, and he was screaming and shouting. And the most amazing part of it was that I wasn't afraid at all at this time.
Yeah.
And then for one split second, that perception of them as angels dropped. Just for a second, it dropped, and I saw the situation as I would normally have seen it, and I shit myself, Samaya, because I was standing right in front of quite a big youth holding a pipe, threatening to kill, and I never was afraid at all. And then the perception dropped, and then I suddenly thought, oh my God, he's going to hit me, and then the perception came back again. It was literally like it went,
wow.
Shoom, shoom. And then I went back to that perception. So that's the reason I can remember so clearly the difference between the perception that everyone is an angel and the normal perception.
Sure.
And anyway, I kept saying, this isn't you. And I said something like, oh, if the police come because you're black youths, you'll get in trouble. You don't want to do this. And as I said that, there was sirens, and they all kind of looked at each other like that for a moment, and then they just ran off.
Great.
And it turned out to be a fire engine anyway.
Saved by the bell either way.
Said, oh, thank you very much. Sorry?
Saved by the bell either way.
Saved by the bell, exactly, yeah. And the guy just said, thank you very much, and I went, fine, yeah. And I just went back home, and from that moment, actually it lasted 3 weeks. So for that 3 weeks, I used to go into work on the British Rail from Lewisham, Central Line. I used to work in Holborn, and for 3 weeks, I saw everyone on the tube, everyone at work as angels, in the same way that I had for this experience. It wore off, but that was, more than anything else, that was the start of my journey, I would say, because obviously that kind of experience never goes away. Even though the perception goes away, the experience that there is a way of looking at things where even the most dangerous, horrible situation, you can see the perfection and the beauty in it. Once you've had that experience, it never goes away. So I just know that that's real underneath everything. So literally, most of my journey since then has been basically developing practices for myself that I can do on a daily basis to bring me back into that state. And it's taken a long time to do that.
Amazing, because it does sound like a really powerful time of activation, or who knows, Kundalini awakening, or just awakening, really. What a beautiful thing to be able to step into that space so consistently. And I agree with you. It definitely plants the seed for life after that, doesn't it? Um, I You're talking about practices. I'd be interested to know. Do you these days? What are perhaps the practices that help you sustain your vision, move more towards your goals, towards your vision, towards what you're creating? And I know you're creating a lot of inspirational content, material, and courses for people, which we'll find out more about later. What are the key practices? However much it could be, even just like a, just even just doing your poetry, or just having a particular interest, or doing meditation practice or yoga or whatever. It could be anything. What would you say is other practices that you're using at the moment, if any?
So I think daily practice is essential, and I also think it's really important to develop your own practice, because what I always say is that the most important thing about your daily practice is that you actually do it. It doesn't matter how good it is. If you don't do it, it's no good. So I know there are a lot of, I've done many Vipassanas, and I know there's many meditation techniques and many practices that you can do. But particularly for most people in modern living, if they take 2 hours or an hour and a half, good chance you're not going to do it regularly. So for me, the most, especially if you're a young mother and, or you work hard, whatever, we know what people are like. So the first thing I say is design your own daily practice. Take from the great traditions, take from stuff that works, that has been proven, but make sure you design it around your life.
Perfect.
So, and it's taken me about 3 years to do that. Like, I know now what I'm like in the mornings and how my life works, and so I've designed my practice so that I do it. So basically it's 20 minutes every morning. Well, actually it's more than that, but what you would say the inner part of it is something called a gratitude bath. So I do a gratitude and visioning and breathing exercise, which I can talk about later, or I can give people a link, because I do it on video and I show people.
Great.
Because gratitude is the key. That's the thing I discovered about this Nothing But Angels thing, is that we all kind of know this, but I experienced it when I talk about the park. I'll tell you how I really realized the power of gratitude, that it is the most powerful thing you could do for yourself and your life and others, actually. But my real practice, and this, I'm glad that you said about my poetry, but because another thing I discovered, along with the fact that your daily practice has to be something that you actually do, is that your daily practice can't just be something you do on your own in your bedroom in your house. Your daily practice has got to be in the outer world, and it's got to be every day. It doesn't have to be a lot, but it has to be a little bit every day. That's what I found, almost every day. Yeah. So regular and consistent action in the world, as well as inner observation, or inner centering. Those kind of practices are essential. Sure. I found that if I just do the inner practices, it creates a situation where if something stressful, emotional happens in the outer world, it throws me, and my practices don't help that much, because I'm used to being in a quiet situation and nice, when everything's perfect. I've got my incense and the lighting is right, and there's no noise. Yeah. So my outer practice, basically, I started 2 years ago. Again, another long story, but the short version of it is that I go onto the tubes and buses, and now at supermarkets, basically wherever I go, singing and dancing and talking to people. Great. And that was my fear-facing practice. It was, I noticed that I'm a very joyful person normally, but when I go on the tubes and the buses, like most people, I go into this strange state of pretending not to be human. You don't make eye contact, you don't talk to strangers, you don't sing, you don't dance. And I just thought, what's going on? Like, why do I turn my joy down when I go onto the tube? Why do we all do that? Like, we all love our music, we all love to be happy. If we were all at a party now or something like that, everyone's a big kid. Every human being I know likes to have fun, likes to laugh, is curious about people. And I was just noticing how on the tube and the bus and in the supermarket, wherever, we don't do that. We behave in a certain way because of the social taboo. And I just decided I'm not going to do that anymore. I'm not going to turn my joy down because I'm afraid of what people will think of me. And that's what I realised. I realised that even though I'm a performer and I stand on stage in front of many people, that actually I was hiding behind my poems. And when it was just a case of being raw and naked on the tube in front of people whose faces was telling me, don't talk to me, leave me alone, when it was just raw, naked, me as a person, no one knew I'm Chris Paradox, and it was just me and them, I noticed this massive fear. And I was like, what am I afraid of? What's the worst thing that could happen? They could laugh at me, they could ignore me, they could tell me to shut up. I mean, it's not that bad if you think about it, really. Like, it's not like my life is in danger. I'm terrified.
But, I so love that you're sharing this, and what I really love that's coming out of what you're saying is how that very same tool that we can use for, sharing a story, for entertainment, for really pleasing people and having fun and enjoying yourself and expressing your gift, that you can also at times hide behind from, we can actually use to actually bare ourselves naked. That very tool with a different intention in a different context can actually transform us in a different way, as well as the environment around us. And I really love the truth of that, how there's that continuation and what a lovely thing. And did you find that people would respond positively to that as well, that perhaps they would embrace that and have some kind of change or shift in their experience where they would feel that they could open up more?
Yeah, I mean, what I found, for a long time before that, actually, I've been doing my Nothing But Angels practice on the tube, which was a silent practice. And I know other people do similar things. So I would cultivate a state of inner joy and peace. And then I would perceive everyone from that place. So I would look with the eyes of God, basically. So I would look at everyone and see everyone's angelic aspect. And very often, if I did that, people would smile at me and they wouldn't know what was happening, obviously, but it definitely, the energy affected the carriage. But with this, what I found very quickly was people are dying for connection. And they're actually dying for somebody to break the ice. Actually, the first time I did it was on a lift coming up from Hampstead Station. And you know that weird thing when you're on a lift? So there's a whole bunch of people in the tube and they all get on the lift together and they go up and it's dead silence. And it's so weird. And I just basically said,
so funny.
Isn't it weird how no one talks in the lift? And everyone just laughed. And by the time we were all talking to each other and going, oh, where are you going? And I'm going for dinner. And I started doing that a lot. I do it all the time now. I always say that in lifts. I love it. And every single time I do it, everyone goes, oh, I'm so glad somebody said that. So, and I'm doing it for 2 years. I do it on British Rail. I've got everyone dancing, singing, round of applause, job offers, girls' phone numbers, you name it. I've had, incredible response. But I'm not saying that to say, oh, how well I've done. I'm just saying that to say, that although, it was never about the result. The reason I did it was to face my fear. And to be authentic. So it's a practice. So my practice is that it's all very well being inspirational and loving and entertaining amongst your friends or on stage when you can hide behind your poems or in situations where it's comfortable for you. But if I'm really to be able to make a difference in the world, I have to do it in everyday situations with mainstream people who don't know me, don't care about me, have got their own things going on, don't care about spirituality, they're not interested in anything. One of my gifts is that I am very enthusiastic.
Absolutely.
I have a lot of energy and joy. And the word enthusiasm, as a new person you will know, means entheos, filled with God. I mean, literally, enthusiasm means to be filled with God. And that's how it feels. I feel filled with high energy and light, and I see part of my purpose, in fact my main purpose, my simplest purpose, is to, wherever I go, I call it bringing God into the room. It means bringing my energy to whatever I'm doing. not just when it's easy and not just when it's comfortable. So that is my practice, is wherever I go. Cab drivers, supermarket, I will sing and dance everywhere.
I really, really love what you're saying, Chris. And what I really love is that you're really making that distinction that actually, yes, we really need to be doing all this. We need to be really connecting with the world in our own personal way, and really bursting those bubbles of nerves and just kind of, the barriers that are there to connect with others. Because as much as people want to do it, they're also really scared. They're really scared to actually take that leap or take that chance and just say hello to people. But I love how you're also, because you're somebody who's actually pretty focused in the work you're doing, and you're really building, you really kind of are able to focus and hone your skills, your energies, your practices together in offering very clear routes for people to engage in activating their potential and really stepping into their own power. So I really love how you're kind of still, for somebody who's able to do that, you're coming from a place also of knowing how to connect with people in a very much more creative, free-flowing space. And I've got a really important question, because I think a lot of people are actually listening who would perhaps love to get the motivation to move into their own potential and perhaps leave their jobs or create their own brand or whatever. As somebody who really advocates that, and supporting people in just kind of moving into supporting their passions, build their own businesses perhaps, what would you say are some of the key challenges that people will face when they consider taking that leap to become an entrepreneur, or to really just, just live out a passion, however small, in whatever small scale or big? But in terms of when a leap needs to be taken, for somebody who's taken such big leaps in life, and there's been more that you'll share with us after that have happened since leaving your job, what would you say are some of the key things that they will challenge, and what would you advise around that, around how to face that?
Great question. Glad you asked, because it's kind of the central theme of the work I do now, which is a culmination of all the work that I've done. So my website is called Your Unstoppable You.
Wonderful.
And it's for people, the strapline is escape planning for smart people stuck in dumb jobs. So it's for people who don't like their job. Surveys say about 80% of people don't like their jobs. So it's really to help people who don't like their jobs either change career to a career they prefer, or, as you say, become entrepreneurs, self-employed, freelancers, coaches, whatever it might be, work from home. But to do meaningful, satisfying, fulfilling work, whatever that might be for you. And you're right, there's a number of challenges. The salary trap is a big one for people, and
sure,
there are various challenges, but actually they all boil down to one thing, one simple thing. And the biggest problem that stops people living life on their own terms and changing their situation, their life, growing, moving forward, is the voice in the head. That is, from my point of view, all of the world's problems are caused by the voice in the head.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to call it ego, because that takes it into something. I'm not an expert on ego or anything like that.
Yeah.
I am an expert on the voice in the head.
I'm not going to call it
anything that we all know what I mean when we say the voice in the head, right?
Yeah. Tell us more though, because I totally understand immediately what you mean. But tell us more for perhaps, because I think it might be quite useful for people to hear you breaking it down or just naming it,
My pleasure. I love nothing better, because it's my favourite subject. So the voice in the head. And it's actually voices in the head. We will have many voices going on. We have many selves competing, but let's just call it the voice to keep it simple. For me, it comes from two sources. And all of this is really from observing my own voice. Obviously I've done the reading and I've read about the psychological and spiritual understandings of these things, but always you should look to yourself first to try and understand yourself, and then maybe you can apply it to other people. But in my own situation, there's the voice in the head from my upbringing, my conditioning. So what my mum used to say, what my teachers, peers, etc., we all know about that. So we have these stories which are basically subconscious programs. So our beliefs, our subconscious programs, stories are just running. They're running all the time, and it's been shown that the subconscious mind is 1,000,000 times more powerful than the conscious mind. The subconscious mind can process something like 40 million bits of information per second. The conscious mind can process 40 bits of information per second. So the subconscious is 1,000,000 times stronger, and these programs are running in the subconscious. And this is why when we try to do New Year's resolutions or give up smoking, or when we try to change behavior consciously only,
right,
almost all
sure,
the subconscious isn't changed. So all of the powerful change techniques work with the subconscious. We kind of know that. And that's true, and I do a lot of work with that. But an understanding that I only got recently, really, in the last 6 months, was that there's another aspect to the voice in the head, which isn't about our conditioning. It's actually very natural and actually is good in a way. And we need it, and it will never go away. Even if you completely uncondition yourself, do all the practices, you'll still have this aspect. And the best word for it I've heard is it's the 𝙎𝙬𝙬, which is whenever you try to grow or change, the voice that says, but if you do that, you might fail. But what about security? But what will your friends think? But. And particularly with career change or moving into self-employment, etc. For me, and I've studied this a lot, it's the absolute #1 barrier for people, because they may have the intention, the dream, they see their dream career, their dream job, they really hate what they're doing now. Everything in them is telling them that they should make this move, but they don't, and it's because of the buts. And this is a really beautiful understanding, because we don't want to make enemies of ourselves. We don't want to make enemies of things that are going on inside us. We want to understand and observe and heal and do all those things, but we don't want to make an enemy of something that's inside you. That's not a good way to go.
Of course.
So I don't want to make an enemy of that voice in the head. I just want to point out that it does its thing, but it's not you. That's the first thing. So the buts, basically what they are, we have a mammalian and a reptilian brain, which have been around millions of years, which basically run our lives most of the time. Everyone knows about the flight or fight response when you're threatened, adrenaline, cortisol, etc. So a bit like that, your brain is evolved to bring you back into equilibrium. Like the body will always try to go back into balance. The brain, every part of you, to survive, wants to bring you back into equilibrium, because in nature, things staying the same is safe. Difference is dangerous. So if there's a predator coming and you see a shadow, that puts you on edge, because it could be a predator. If everything's just the same, that means safety. So you can feed, you can look after your children, But if there's a sudden difference, then you need to be on edge. So what life will do is, as soon as you go on edge, but nature wants to bring you back to safety. So whenever you try to leave your comfort zone, whenever you try to change, growth, this is why people are afraid of the unknown. Your evolutionary mechanisms, your brain, your hormones, will do whatever they can to bring you back to equilibrium. It's been proven. If you see somebody's life on a graph, you can go up, but you will come back down to the middle. You can go down, but you'll come back to the middle. There's always a force bringing us back to the middle, and that is the buts. The buts are there to help you come back to the middle. So they're not wrong. The problem is that they were evolved for genuine threats to you, like threats to your physical life. And in our world, most of the time in the West, it's not a threat to your physical life. It's certainly not a threat to your physical life to change career and become an entrepreneur, but your brain doesn't know the difference. The brain doesn't know the difference to a real threat and a symbolic threat. So if there's a threat of just change, it will react to bring you back, to stop you from changing. So that's what you have to understand, is that voice in your head, it's trying to protect you by saying but it's being employed in the wrong place.
Okay. Yeah.
Sometimes it might be the life. Yeah. If you're walking along a cliff on a windy day, your earbuds will tell you, don't go too close to the edge. So sometimes you should listen to them, But most of the time, especially if you're trying to do something new, trying to change your life, they will be holding you back.
So suppose it's very interesting actually what you're sharing, and how that can be a bit of a, in a way, it sounds like really important to be able to distinguish between those two functions, so that we're able to make the best use of that, really, of what it has to offer, to really know when it's a trap and it's coming from that place that is there to hold us back, and when it's actually coming from a real place of protecting and taking care of us. I really love that, and obviously, like, for somebody who is a little bit further down the journey now in terms of you and the work that you're doing, and how you're putting your courses out there and you're getting some good response back as well. And from somebody, you shared how you've had that life of going to the festivals, doing your poetry, and I suppose there was a different flow to your work, and now it's coming out in a slightly more structured way. What would you say were the skills and traits that you had to develop in order to really step into the work that you're doing now, but not back down, right? Because this is the thing I think that a lot of people get scared of. At some point, they just give up. So what do you think you had to develop in terms of skills, in terms of traits, in terms of personal qualities to kind of keep on going?
Okay, so to answer that question, it's probably best if I go back to going into the park, because most of the skills that I used as a poet and now all were developed in that 7 months. So when I left the job and was made redundant, I went to work for Friends of the Earth, doing door-to-door commission-only sales for fundraising for 6 months, and by that time I'd read my David Icke, and Friends of the Earth as a charity weren't radical enough for me. I was all about the banking system and the elites and stuff like that, and how we're going to change the world. And I could empty a room in 30 seconds. I'd go in and I'd start telling everyone, do you know that 97% of the world's money supply? And everyone would leave. So I became very isolated. My friends from advertising had thought I was crazy. My wife had left me by now.
Wow.
My mum didn't know me, so I was very much on my own.
Wow.
I decided, I felt like I didn't have a place in the world. And this is where purpose first really became so important in my life. Mark Twain has a quote, the two most important days of your life are the day you were born and the day you find out why.
Wow.
And that was ringing around in my head, and I realised I had no idea why I was here.
Wow, yeah,
I was
strong, eh?
Been working in advertising, and that was a complete wrong career for me. I just didn't know what to do with myself and what my life was about, and I just felt completely lost. And just being a bit crazy, I decided, okay, I'd give up. I said, okay, universe, God, you've stripped away everything of my life. You've left me with nothing, but you haven't shown me what I'm supposed to do.
Nice.
So I took a bin line of books and a bin line of clothes, and I went into Battersea Park, my favourite park, and there's an area there called the Meadow, and I decided, okay, until you show me the purpose of my life, I'm going to be nothing. I'm going to be a bum. I'm going to be homeless. I don't care. I literally, and I remember it, I didn't care. I said, if I don't know what I'm here for, then I'm not going to be here for anything. I'm just going to be nobody.
What time of the year was that? Was it spring? Pardon?
Yes, spring. Everyone always asks that.
Thank God.
So, April the 11th, so spring. Yeah, I was lucky. It was the perfect time of year.
God, yeah.
But I had 2 sons, and it wasn't easy. I make it sound like it was easy. It wasn't an easy decision, but I explained to my sons that I'm no good as a dad to them, feeling lost and being depressed and not knowing what to do with my life. So this is my aim, was to find the purpose.
Wow.
And I knew I could sell the big issue magazines to earn money, so I wasn't worried about starving or anything like that. I mean, we're very lucky in the West. Not many people starve in our countries. But the big issue is a wonderful, it's a wonderful thing for homeless people, because you can buy it for 50p at the time. and sell it for 1%. So you make your own money, basically. It's like having your own business. And I've always been a salesman, so I felt that I could sell enough big issues. So two things happened that changed my life completely and speak to the skills that I developed that helped me throughout my life. And, you know, they are the ultimate skills for career change, for sure. One is, so the first night I was in the park, I took my bin liner of clothes, my bin liner of books, my sleeping bag, under the tree, tried to go to sleep. I was afraid of three things. I was afraid of rain. I was afraid of, and it actually did rain a little bit, but not too bad. I was afraid of bugs, of, you know, waking up crawling with bugs. You know, I'm a London boy. And the third thing I was afraid of was, am I mad? Like, oh my God, is this what madness is?
Wow.
Like when you see the mad guy on the streets and on the talking to himself and shouting and screaming, is this what I am now? Like, is this what it is? Is this how it starts? I've just given up this career and everything, and my mum's left me, disowned me, my wife's left me. I'm now living in a park. Like, am I mad? Like, I really, really, really kept asking myself that question because all the evidence suggested that I was. Like, you know, I didn't feel mad, but given my situation, it was like, wow, maybe I'm mad and I don't realize it. And so I asked that a lot, and eventually I fell asleep. I don't know how, but eventually I fell asleep. And I woke up, and there was a bird about 2 feet away from me singing the most beautiful song I'd ever heard. The sun, I didn't even know the sun could dapple, but the sun was dappling through the leaves and casting rainbows on the dew. It was like a scene from a Disney movie. And the bird was singing it, and honestly I heard in the bird song, morning has broken. It was like that.
Aww.
And in that moment that I woke up and to this perfection, I just thought, well, if this is madness, I'll take it. I'm
so
very
beautiful.
happy to be mad if this is madness, because this is glory. This, like, it felt like I'd woken up in glory, and pretty much on and off, but pretty much I was in the park for 7 months. I was in that state most of the time, with some exceptions that I'll tell you about. But with hindsight, what I realized was that I kind of bumbled my way into it. I'm not going to say that I was clever and wise and I knew what I was doing. I bumbled my way into a situation where I stripped away all my roles and identities. You know, I literally did become a nobody. And, you know, because we always have these roles, identities, businessman, worker, husband, wife, father, mother, son, brother, all of these identities and roles that we play, and we get attached to them. We think we are the role. We forget that we are the thing behind the role, the consciousness, the awareness, the spirit, whatever you want to call it, and we think we are the role. Yeah. And so when I was a nobody, I literally woke up as a nobody. That first morning I had no role. I was the homeless guy in the park, but that's pretty much a nobody. And what I realized was that, all my life I thought I needed this status or these material things or this approval, all these things that we think we need to be happy and fulfilled. And when I woke up in the park with just the birds singing and the sun shining, I realized that my bare naked existence, just my being, just my life, just the basic part of me was the greatest thing ever, and I didn't need anything else. And this is where the gratitude comes in. It's what gratitude for something, gratitude for existing, gratitude for life, gratitude for being. That is the greatest power in the universe. And in terms of manifestation and all this, I teach manifestation, that's the key. If you can be grateful for the fact that you have a body and you're alive and you have consciousness and you can perceive color and taste and sound and all the magnificence of life, which we totally take for granted, but you don't, if you're a homeless guy living under the tree, your whole life will change completely. So that's the first thing I developed, is I developed the ability to be very grateful for nothing, to unreasonable happiness, Dan Millman calls it, or gratitude for existence. Yeah, that's, to me, that's the most important quality of life. If you can develop that, you can never go wrong, really, because you'll always bounce back. You know, it makes you unstoppable. which is the name of my website, because if everything is taken away, you can just start again and create it all again. And I've done that many times. Like I give it all away and then I create it again, because I know that I don't need anything. Like as long as I have consciousness and life and a body and some kind of energy, I can create anything I need. And that is the thing that I appreciate. I was very blessed to have that experience, and most people haven't had that experience, but I can teach people that. I have taught people that, and it's teachable.
And I think this is a real testament that you're actually, you do mean what you're saying, because it's interesting. As you were saying, I was very blessed to have this opportunity or to have had this experience. And there was that little part of me in my mind that just said, you feel blessed to have been homeless. So it's interesting that I can really see how what you're talking about, that you actually do feel the gratitude for the experiences you've had and for what made of you. So I'm guessing then, in terms of, it's so beautiful to hear you talking. I mean, your perception of beauty around you, it almost sounded like you had been rebirthed, and you were really noticing nature and life and the bird song and the sun and the movement around you, and the beauty in that was just really awesome to just see the experience you were having after such a traumatic time. And really, that capacity you have to transform that kind of level of destruction that happened around the old systems in your life to really see the silver lining and move forward. That's pretty amazing. That's pretty amazing. So here you are having this experience for about 7 months, did you say?
Yeah.
Okay. And obviously, then there was that moment of you said you were asking that question and you were asking the universe to show you. So when were you shown? When did you start getting the glimmer of the sudden realization,
yes,
or what you're here to do?
Yes. So I just need to tell you something before I tell you the exact moment. So what happened is that I would get up, I would walk from Battersea Park to Vauxhall to buy my Big Issue magazines. So if I had a fiver, I would buy 10 magazines. Then I would walk from Vauxhall to Victoria Street, where my pitch was, and I would sell my big issues. And if I sold them all, I would make £10 or something, just over. And then I would buy some more, walk back, buy some more for £10, and then sell those. And at the end of the day, I would have whatever, £30, £40 to buy food and look after myself and do whatever I wanted to do. And I would spend most of the day walking around the park. It's really funny, when people go to a park, everyone becomes a kid again, and everyone that you see the best of people in parks, because they feed, the old people feed, and the kids feed the ducks, and the young lovers and couples are there, and it's just lovely being in the park. Where I spent my whole time in a park, people playing tennis and walking by the river, and it's just you see the best of humanity. It's a bit like airports. Like if you go to an airport where people are arriving, everyone's hugging each other and loving each other. They're lovely places to hang around.
Yeah.
But anyway, so what I found after a couple of weeks is that, I could sell the Big Issue pretty well. I could sell about 5 to 8 an hour, and a lot of Big Issue sellers sell about 5 to 8 a day. So,
wow.
But I stand up and I really sell it. So that made sense to me that I could sell it that much. But my general experience living in the park was so blissful. It was, I was literally, everywhere I went, I made people smile, not by doing anything, just because my energy. People always used to say to me, "Oh, I love your energy," and people would smile at me, and I could just tell I was in this very high state. But then when I went to sell the Big Issue, the fear of not selling them, the fear of not making any money would take my joy away. You will notice that this is a big theme for me, is like, what takes my joy away, and then addressing that. So I would notice that the fear of failure, basically, of failing to sell the Big Issue.
Right.
And, there were times when it was typical. People would insult you, and I got spat at, and, sometimes it could be quite rough for the ego, obviously. So the fear of the whole experience, of it being a bad experience, used to take my joy away. And I would notice this. I'd go back to the park, and the joy would come back, and I'd think, wow, I've been out of my joy for like 3 hours because I've been selling the big issue. So I just determined, I said to myself, okay, I've got to do something about this. And in Conversations with God, it speaks about the fact that the outer world is a mirror of the inner world, and whatever you want on the outer, generate on the inner. So I said, right, I'm going to give that a try. So I started doing, every morning I'd get up and I'd do some chakra energy raising exercises, some breathing exercises. I would walk really fast or run, so I'd get my blood pumping, I'd raise my energy, and I would get myself into a high state of joy. And I decided I'm going to sell from joy instead of from fear. And I would get to my pitch, and I would start selling really joyfully. And my pitch was, good morning, ladies and gentlemen, get your Big Issue magazine here, the only magazine that helps homeless people to help themselves. Always better to teach a starving man how to fish than to give him food. And then I would talk about the magazine and say, oh, Brad Pitt's in this issue, ladies, isn't he handsome? And I'd muck about and make jokes. So I started doing that again, and immediately, Samaya, that I started selling from this joyful place.
Nice.
I went from selling 5 to 8 magazines an hour to selling 15 to 20 an hour.
Whoa.
And when I was selling 5 to 8, I was making 70p a magazine, but when you get tips, people sometimes, say, keep the change. On average, I was making £1 a magazine. When I started selling 15 to 20, I was making sometimes, very often, £3 a magazine.
Yeah.
So basically, I went from making £5 to £8 an hour to making £60 an hour selling the big issue.
Wow. Which is insane money, eh?
Yeah, and that's what plumbers make, and people who've been to college and done BTEC. So I basically made a career out of selling the big issue. And once, I remember I was basically in bliss. I was in full Eckhart Tolle, full bliss. And like I say, it's not that difficult when you wake up with the birds and the trees and the sky. It's not that difficult when you're sleeping under a tree. But I was really in a high state. I did my practice, got to my pitch at 8:30 on I don't know what day of the week it was, but it was right on the corner, really good pitch in Victoria. And I bought 25 magazines to sell. And usually I would sell those in between an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours on a bad day. And I reached into my bag to pull the first one out to start my pitch. And before I could pull the first bag out, someone came and gave me £10.
Wow.
And I said, thank you very much. Oh, and they said, oh, I just love your energy. And then I said, good morning. And then someone came and gave me £20. And that kept happening.
Wow.
I was hardly able to, I don't think I completed my pitch once, because within seconds of holding the magazine up, somebody would get there, and everybody that morning. I mean, it happened before. Occasionally someone will give you a £5 or a £10, but this morning everyone did. And basically, this is my record. I sold 25 big issues in 15 minutes, and made £135 or something. It works out as £560 an hour.
That's amazing.
And basically it was magic. And this is the point I wanted to make. And that is what magic is. Magic is gratitude and creating the feeling that you want on the outside, on the inside. So everything we do is for the feeling.
Yeah.
So the only reason I sold the big issue and the only reason we do anything is because of the feeling it's going to give us. We don't want money for the sake of money. We don't want to go on holiday for the sake of going. So we don't want to have a relationship for the sake of the relationship. It's because of the feeling it gives us. Everything we do is for feeling. And the secret to creating anything, manifesting, changing your life, is be grateful before you get it, one. And number two, create the feeling you want to have before the thing.
Okay.
So I would create the joy and satisfaction and abundance first, and then people would run and give me money.
Yeah. Really very vital homegrown wisdom, actually, to hear Chris here, because it sounds like, I think because you put it so beautifully through the example that of your life, you really demonstrated it through that, and how you managed to really step into the vortex. You created such a vortex of energy that you stepped into that space where people were coming to you. I found that really interesting. You didn't even have to finish your pitch, which is really kind of telling of the
Yeah.
energy sort of vortex you've created. It's amazing, and I'm kind of a little bit intrigued. You talked a little.
Can I just say, and I meant to say this, almost everybody who did that, and also on about a dozen occasions, I would be in the park or walking somewhere, and someone would run up to me and they say, "Oh, I saw you selling the big issue last week, and I just loved your energy," and they would give me £10.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
even when I wasn't selling the big issue,
Yeah.
people would literally run up to me and give me money, and they would always say, "I love your energy." So
Yeah.
it absolutely was this
Yeah.
energy I was creating.
Yeah.
Honestly, I couldn't, like, to me, if somebody put a gun to my head and said, "Tell me one thing that is true about life," I would say it's all about energy.
Yeah,
I bet my life on that.
Yeah. No, amazing, incredible. And then, you know, here you are now, kind of, you've managed to be harnessing that energy in a very productive way through the work, which I'd love to hear about. And I'm aware of us of time because we've done an hour, but I'd love to kind of hear more, a little bit more from you. And I'm kind of a little bit intrigued. You mentioned a little bit about the child energy as well, and I'm a little bit intrigued, you know, in terms of the people we become and the children we were. Can you see a thread to say the child that you were, and were there any particular inclinations or insights that you have now from how you remember yourself of a child? Was it something that was demonstrating of who the person you'd be and the kind of journey you'd have, or your, both in terms of your exploration in life and your inquisitive nature, as well as your wanting to, the desire to grow, and your entrepreneurial spirit now? What would you say? Can you see any links to the child that you were?
I can see a couple. One is that my earliest memory of what I wanted to be when I grew up was two things, actually. And in a way, I've done both. One was to be a singer. I saw myself on stage. I can't actually sing that well, but I did become a performer, so there is an element of that. And the other was to be a teacher. I actually remember very young.
Yeah.
Actually, in particular, when I first went to school, I remember watching the teachers and thinking, I could do better than that. I remember that.
Brilliant.
I always used to think I could do much better than that.
Brilliant.
And I've always had that. I've always thought that teaching was important and good, and then later on in life, when I started doing workshops and courses and things, you're a really good teacher, and I know how I feel when I'm doing it, and I feel I love it, and that's always a good sign. I really, really love it. And so I would say that those were my two ambitions, to perform and teach, and I did those. And the other thing I think maybe is stayed with me is, I remember I was about 6, and I asked my dad the same question I asked the directors at the advertising agency. "Why are we here, Dad? What's it all about?" And I actually don't remember the answer he gave me, but it was a bullshit answer. And I'm asking a couple of other people, my mum and an auntie or someone, my sister. And even as a 6-year-old, it was really obvious to me that they didn't know.
Yeah.
And obviously at that age, your parents are your gods. You know, you look up to them. And I remember having this realization, oh my God, they don't know anything. They don't know why we're here.
Yeah.
Like, if they don't know why we're here, like, to me, it was really obvious that if you don't know what you're trying to do, you can't know what you're doing. Like, you can't. And the world, we don't. If the human race doesn't know its purpose, is it any surprise that we don't know what we're doing and that we're destroying everything? So, but at that age, it was important to me.
It's
It was clear
amazing.
to me that you needed to know that, and I always remember that at that point, I became very independent thinker. I basically decided that no one else knows what they're talking about, so I'm not going to listen to anyone else. I'm going to figure it out for myself, and that's very much been my way, yeah.
Wow. What a strong thing as a child, though, to experience, to actually then have the insight that this is what you need to do. You need to find your own answers. You need to find out what you're here and not take other people's answers. And obviously, I know we won't be going so much into the story that led up to your accident and your losing of your leg, your near life experience that you talked about it, that you've kind of had that all changed around. But I would love to know how that experience, how you feel some of the key, I know it's quite a big question, but I love trying to get big questions and narrow down to smaller sort of pathways, you know, because I think that we can condense the wisdom. But how would you say that experience has really been channeled into your work? How pivotal has it been? Oh, okay.
So I missed that question. What did you say?
Sure. So I'm interested to know the experience of your losing your leg and how that fed into your life at the moment, at the time, and what you chose to do after that, and who you became with that experience. What kind of, because it seems like for you, it kind of puts some pieces of the puzzle together. So I'm interested to know about what those pieces were.
When I lost the leg, I'd just recovered from, a few months before that, I'd recovered from a period of serious depression, which at one stage was suicidal. We spoke, when we were chatting yesterday, we spoke about the bumps in life. And, like anybody's life, my life has had many bumps. And we were saying also that as you progress on the journey, you realize that the bumps are an essential part of the journey, and that in many ways you learn the most from the bumps. So what I find younger people, or people who have only just started their journey, they try to avoid the bumps. No one wants the bumps. They want the smoothness, they want everything to go well and to grow and everything to be light and they spend a lot of energy trying to avoid the bumps. What I would say to anyone is just when the bumps come, recognize them as part of the process. Don't.
Oh, we're getting a little bit disconnected here.
My bumps was a period of depression, and I managed to get through that, and I was having the adventure of a lifetime in Mexico. Jumped off a cliff into a river, hit a rock, smashed my leg, got gangrene, nearly died. Now, the thing that really changed my life about this process, two things really. One is that all of that reading of Viktor Frankl and all that recognition that life has no meaning except the meaning you give it, and that it's not about what happens to you, it's how you respond to it, and that there's nothing as more powerful than the human spirit, and that the two things that give life meaning are love and purpose. All of that stuff allowed me to see the gift in the situation basically immediately while I was in hospital, even before the amputation. Again, not because I'm great or anything, just because that was my path, because I'd had all of these experiences before prepared me so that when this happened to me, I naturally, without, not through skill, but naturally knew the attitude and approach to take, and I knew how to go through the stages of grief, and I knew how to find the gift, and I did very quickly, mainly because hundreds of people raised money for me because I didn't have holiday insurance. My parents, through life, when there was no blood, they went onto the streets and campaigned for blood for me. I had so much love coming from people that it broke my heart open. So I was so grateful, even while it was happening anyway, because of the love. So those two things combined, seeing the gift and just being so overwhelmed with the love that was there, just made it. I always say, people would say, "Oh, I give my right arm for that." Well, for me, I gave my right leg for that, and I got the best end of the deal, like really. And I've since discovered there's something called post-traumatic growth disorder. Everyone knows about post-traumatic stress. And I'm definitely a sufferer of post-traumatic growth, because some people, when something terrible happens to them, for a variety of reasons, are able to, use alchemy to transform that traumatic or negative experience into something that's not only positive for them, but more importantly, positive for others. And I've always been fascinated by stories of mothers who have lost a child, who start cancer foundations, or, people who just incredibly forgiving, terrible things happen to them, and then they just dedicate their lives to helping others. I've always felt that is the human spirit. Like, whatever that is, if we could bottle that, then, we could change the world. And then I had my own experience, and I realised it was an opportunity for me to do the same thing, which is to take something bad, when life gives you lemons, turn it into lemonade, etc.
And
so that was the gift. That was the gift in losing the leg, is that I realised from the inside out that we all have the human spirit within us, and we are all capable of transforming tragedy into triumph. And there are some teachable things that you can learn that can help you to do that.
And I mean, I know it's a lot of experience packed in this question, and a lot of things that you could be, talking more about it. So I appreciate that you've really condensed it on the wisdom that you gained from it, and also that kind of motivation to move forward. And you've kind of now, you are in this place where you've been doing your performance poetry, but now you've kind of really stepped into this new space of really putting all this wisdom into your coaching courses and your educational courses to people. And I'd love to hear about those and to know how people can find out about you, Chris. And you give us all the links to your websites, and we can and your courses, and we'll put them under the video so people know how to access more of what you offer and more of your courses. So so you've got, because I know the Inspiration Engineer, and then there's the Unstoppable You. Is that a new thing that you're launching, a new course?
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity to let people know about what I'm doing. Thanks, Samaya.
Sure.
So Inspiration Engineer is the name of the overall company, but the brand, as it were,
right.
the face is going to be a blog, and the blog is called Your Unstoppable You. Brilliant. Sometimes when I say that to people, they think I mean it like a scouser, like, you're unstoppable, you are. But actually, it's the part of you that is unstoppable. In other words, the part of you that is infinite, the universal part of you, the human spirit, that universal thing that we all have. Mm-hmm. So as human beings, we're all limited. We all have our fears and our vulnerabilities and our flaws and stuff. And that's fine. That's what you're supposed to have when you're human. But we're also what I call the universe in a human suit.
Yeah.
This is the simplest understanding of us, is that everything is the universe in a suit. A tree is the universe in a tree suit. The moon is the universe in a moon suit. The sun is the universe in a sun suit. A mountain is the universe in a mountain suit. An ant is the universe in an ant suit. And I am the universe in a human suit. I mean, I don't think anyone can argue with that. You don't need to believe anything to see that is clearly and obviously so.
Yeah.
So that is my starting point when I talk to anyone about this, is that you agree that you're the universe in a human suit, right? And they go, yeah. I said, well, so that means that we all have a universal part of us as well as the human part of us. And that is the part. If you can tap into your universal part, you become unstoppable. And that's what my life has taught me. And Your Unstoppable You is a website focused on a particular aspect of human life, or a particular part of human life, which is this whole thing about people not liking their jobs. People in jobs that basically they're wasting their lives in jobs they don't enjoy. There's a Zen saying that work is the highest joy. And since I've found I do my work, and I'm sure you feel the same way, when you're doing the work that you feel you were born to do, when you're doing what uses your inherent skills and talents and suits your personality and feels meaningful, it feels like you're contributing to the world. When you're doing that kind of work, it doesn't feel like work.
Absolutely.
It doesn't feel like work. It feels like life. And honestly, I know that everybody deserves to do that. Like, no one needs to hate their job. It's unnecessary. There are enough opportunities. There is enough abundance. There is enough people. There is enough difference. There is enough everything for everyone to do what they love. And I don't mean that no one could be a dustman or be a cleaner.
Sure.
Because some people love being dustmen and cleaners. Some people are brilliant cleaners. Some people are brilliant dustmen and love it. So it's not about having a high-powered job. It's just about the right job for you. And believe me, there's a right job for everyone. Like if you live in a community, there's always somebody who wants to do the job you don't want to do. So I really strongly believe that. So that's my mission, my passion in life is to to be a wannabe Morpheus and help people escape the matrix of unfulfilling work. And so you can find that. It's just in beta at the moment. We're going to soft launch on Monday, which I believe is the 8th. So if you put the link on, if you visit from Monday, all the links will be working and the blogs, and it's all there. It's all explained there. But that is my offering to the world, my service, which is it's called escape planning for smart people stuck in dumb jobs. So if you're a smart person and you're thinking this job is dumb, doesn't engage me, I don't love it, doesn't stretch me, youronstoppableU.com is the place for you.
Wonderful. I'm really looking forward to accessing it and just seeing what you've created and the pathways you've created for people to really be able to step into a process that will allow them. Because obviously it doesn't always have to be extreme, and you have a process for people that will be able to engage in a way that is right for them. So I'm really excited about that, Chris, and I feel I absolutely love that you've shared your story with us today here. I think there's so much, again, it's the human beingness that I was talking about, again, so much of your capacity to turn into the positive and really create and bring something beautiful and really connect with the universal on the same time. And I just feel there's a lot of inspiration to be had for people watching this video and this interview. And I look forward to more and seeing what happens really, and what more is brought forward with your work. So thank you so much. Can people link up with you in Facebook or Twitter or any other social media? They can find you.
Absolutely, yeah. On Facebook, obviously it's Chris Paradox. If you go to my fan page, that's a good place to get to know everything that's happening with Your Unstoppable You.
Brilliant.
And to get linked up, and obviously on Twitter as well, it's Chris Paradox with 3 X's, the middle X being a big X.
Wonderful. It's been absolutely a pleasure. Thank you so much for speaking to us.
Thank you for having me, Samaya. It's been a lot of fun. I know all of us love to talk about ourselves, so you give me the chance to be a big master talking about myself. Thank you.
No, it's been very inspiring. So thank you, and I hope you enjoy the rest of your day. Yeah. Take care. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Thank you so much, Chris. Take care.
You're saying goodbye, yeah?
Yeah. So see you again all soon. Thank you.
Lots of love. Thank you. Take care.
Bye.